game-changing discussions on the big ideas that shape our thinking. This is One2One.
In every generation, a few individuals stand out at the intersection of ideas, implementation, and policy. Thinkers who not only imagine better systems, but actually build them. Dr. Jumoke Oduwole is a scholar of international trade and development. She has spent the last decades translating complex policy into practical reform, from leading Nigeria's Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council to now shaping national trade and industrial strategy as Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. She is my guest on the show today. Dr. Oduwole, welcome to One2One.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to dive straight in and begin by reeling off some of your accomplishments. You are a lawyer by training, LLB, second class, Upper University of Lagos. Called to the bar in Nigeria in 1999. Master of Laws, LLM in Commercial Law in Cambridge. Masters in International Legal Studies, Stanford. And a further doctorate in International Trade and Development, Stanford. Well, let's not stop there. You served under President Buhari as a Senior Special Assistant on Industry, Trade and Investment. And later I went on to be Special Advisor on the ease of doing business. Amongst all of this, you lecture, I believe, at the University of Lagos. You still find time to do that?
No.
No.
I'm on loan to the federal government.
Okay, on loan.
Yeah.
That's a very nice way to put it. And amidst all this, you're balancing all of these roles as a public servant, an academic, a mother, a mentor, a role model to young Nigerians. You, in my view, of course, are one of the sharpest tools in the shed. But I'm interested in your background. So tell me, who is Dr. Jumoke Oduwole?
Thank you very much for the kind invitation and for having me here on your program today. You've pretty much reeled out who I am. If I were to go way back, I'm the third of four children. My father is a professor of surgery and first vice chancellor of Lagos State University. My mother was the first female registrar of University of Lagos. So I come from a very academic stable, grew up on campus. And so very idyllic middle-class life, best of Nigeria, really detribalized because I grew up with all manner of people, like knowledge, very committed to Nigeria and nation building because that is who our parents were. They were academics and they were visionaries, and so we had a good childhood.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That sums it up.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so from academia to public service, you've moved from teaching international economic law at the University of Lagos to doing what you're doing now, the custodian really for trade, investment, industry in this country. Can you tell me how your background in academia has helped you navigate the realities of government?
Well, I actually started my career in investment banking and corporate banking, so I do have a financial background to that extent, even though I'm a lawyer. And so academia was also just teaching and the knowledge around international economic law, the issues with development, the asymmetry in world negotiations. That's what my doctorate is on. And so coming into public service, I came with a very strong sense of the rights to development, what it means to be at heart what I am, a nation builder and a teacher. And those are the things that have propelled me to work in the presidency for over a decade now.
Okay, so permit me to frame the context in which we will have the rest of this conversation. I want you to start with the big picture in terms of industry, trade, and investment. Where are we going in this country under your leadership?
So under the president's leadership, with the Renewed Hope Agenda, since 2023, the Renewed Hope Agenda, item number 7, speaks to diversifying Nigeria's economy and accelerating that diversification through non-oil exports. And so the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment works across the board with several other ministries to deliver on that mandate. And that means from agriculture to technology to healthcare. We're making sure that we're doing more production in Nigeria, productivity, competitiveness, and then we're making sure that Nigerian businesses are able to grow and scale, and particularly to export and prioritizing the African Continental Free Trade Area.
And we will come back to that in a bit. I know, of course, that is a favorite subject of yours. Absolutely.
It comes right from the academia,
Yes.
from thinking through what it takes to move nations, how nations are built, and how development for Nigeria and the continent. That's really where I immersed myself as an academic and as a scholar. And so being able to bring that into policy and to deliver impact for over 200 million people can get better.
A real pleasure. Absolutely. So I want to talk about our path in this country, certainly over the last 10 years. We've lived a bit of a charmed existence, really, haven't we? Quite a glorious era in terms of global representation. We have Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala at the WTO. We have had Dr. Akinwumi Additional at the African Development Bank, Professor Benedict Orama at Afrexim. Both all, in fact, amazing, quite incredible, notable accomplishments. And incidentally, both Dr. Adeomi and Professor Orama have ended their tenure this year.
We still have Samaila of Africa Finance Corporation. So it really has been a clean flush of cards for Nigeria.
Absolutely. So can I ask you to reflect for me on the impact, potentially, of the departure of these two giants, really, on the economic fortunes and aspirations of this country?
So Nigeria is at an inflection point. 2025 I've described as an inflection point for this country, where you look at what Mr. President did on day one, removing the subsidy, the unification of the foreign exchange, and then you look at what the administration has been doing in terms of tidying up our policy space. The tax architecture has been refreshed for the first time in decades for Nigeria, and what that would mean for our tax to GDP and growing the economy. Also a new Investments and Securities Act, a bouquet of reforms in the policy space that has stabilized the economy. And so we're at an inflection point for growth and competitiveness. This picks up on the work of the erudite Nigerians that you've just listed out, including Amina Mohammed at the UN. So we have men and women across the world who have been doing us proud in the economic development space. The work that they've been leading globally and how it now comes down to Africa and to Nigeria, even before coming to Nigeria, to West Africa and then to Nigeria. I like to speak in concentric circles and what that means for trade and investment and industrialization. So they've been at the forefront of shaping policy, even through global headwinds like COVID and the disruptions in the Middle East and in Europe, the wars, the conflicts. And they've been at the forefront of shaping policy. If I take President Orama, for example, who is just exiting the Afrexim Bank after a decade of impactful work, whether it's from supporting the AFCFTA, that secretariat, and bringing that agreement to life, from facilitating payment solutions like the PAPs across Africa. These are tangible things that are delivering for African people, and that is the trajectory that this administration is committed to. Yeah.
Here. Right. So you speak in concentric circles. That for me is the evidence of an organized mind, really. But I want to delve a little bit further into those recent and potential disruptions in the global supply chain. You alluded to it in your response. In light of recent pandemics, geopolitical tensions, and even the Trump tariffs. Oh, by the way, your interview.
Can't resist.
No, I was always going to go there. Your interview with Richard Quest, you were absolutely beaming in that interview, with good reason too. The economy expanding, trade balance of exports between Nigeria and the US in a very healthy position, in fact, slightly in favor of Nigeria, at at that point. And then along comes President Donald Trump imposing a 15% tariff, up from 14%. Yet you held your nerve and you talked about all the new friends. And the world being a big place.
It is.
So tell me, how is Nigeria positioning itself to become part of a new, more resilient global world order?
So thankfully, we already had a plan. We had a strategy from when I was appointed last November. My team and I, with the ministry, really strategized. We took stock on where things are and where we felt the Nigerian economy, looking at the reforms that are ongoing in the administration and where to take that to. And so we already had a response. I talked about the 8-point agenda, and item number 7. So we were not reactionary. This was even before Liberation Day. I had stated at Davos in January that we are really open for business. This is Mr. President's direction. And we know that there's a lot of interest in the Nigerian economy from the Gulf, from the Middle East, from Latin America. You've seen Brazil, you've seen Colombia visit, from Asia, whether it's China, India, from Europe, from the US. So we have old friends who we've kept strategic relationships. We have a commercial investment partnership with the US going very well. We've talking very closely, working with the UK. I've been there about twice this year as well. But there are new friends today, and the world is a big place. I haven't even talked about the Caribbean. And I always focus on the rest of Africa because these are our neighbors. We have a competitive advantage. And so there's really no need to neglect what is right in your neighborhood in terms of trade facilitation, logistics. And so when I say that we have old friends and we have new friends to be made and that the world is a big place, it's not rhetoric. It's actually to now follow that trajectory. So this was on course. This was our response. And we didn't feel the need to react because of the Trump tariffs. The US is entitled, is their sovereign right. And the American people will also continue to purchase Nigerian products, particularly our oil and gas, our fertilizer, our urea, our cocoa, because we all love chocolate. And so let's just continue the trading relationship. There's really no need to overheat the polity.
Absolutely. You love chocolate, do you?
I do.
You do? I do. So Dr. Oduwole, here's your chance. The African Continental Free Trade Area. So what is your strategic vision for Nigeria's role in the ACFTA and beyond?
It's a bit of a tongue twister. So
It is.
AFCFTA is a market of 1.4 billion people. It's the largest single market by country in the world. Yes. And it's 3.4 trillion US dollars economy. So you see that there's space to grow. If I just even zero in on digital trade, the world digital trade market was about over $30 billion. And Africa only traded about 4.6, like really just a very small amount of that. And it was external. Only about 5% of that digital trade was within Africa. So you see a situation where there's a 95% opportunity.
Absolutely.
And you know that we're already leading in terms of technology. Our young people are so competitive in that space, particularly in fintech. When you have about 9 unicorns on the continent, 5 of them, that's over 50% of Nigerian extraction and growing. I was at just a conference yesterday, and that just tells you the moonshot. We brought the whole international community to Lagos, Nigeria, and the phenomenal list of Nigerian businesses. We know the Flutterwaves, we know the PayPals, but you can't imagine the pipeline of talent.
Absolutely.
And so in February, we put in our hat to be co-champions of digital trade. Mr. President was commended at the AU Heads of State meeting. And so we're leading that charge for digitization, from digital public infrastructure to enabling through identity systems, through trade facilitation systems, through payment systems, governments across Africa leading the charge. We also made sure that we focused on our Nigerian tech ecosystem, asked them in April where they want to trade. And we saw that they want to trade to 5 priority markets: Egypt, South Africa, Kenya, Rwanda, Ghana. And so just 3 weeks ago, we invited regulators from those spaces into Lagos, Nigeria, to have a sandbox with our own regulators. And on the second day, we had our businesses, our startups in the room. So it's market access, it's trade facilitation. You talked about logistics and value chains. COVID and the disruptions have shown us that it's important to have your production close to your market.
Absolutely.
Nigeria in itself is a big market. West Africa is a big market, and the rest of Africa is a big market. So you see, it only makes sense for people to domesticate their hubs here. We also have our free zone incentives that we're reviewing this year. And so positioning Nigeria as a production hub with competitiveness is a priority. It's nothing. In fact, right now, today, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is holding their annual general meeting, their 53rd, here in Lagos. It's not like easy work, but we have to focus on making sure that we push competitiveness and productivity, and that we encourage bringing businesses to come to produce here.
Yes.
So that has been some of our focus, investing for exports. And it's a really important discussion that is being pushed. And so how you choose which sectors and how you attract investment and which sectors you prioritize, there's a method to the madness of what this administration has been pushing over the last 2.5 years. And it's yielding positive results.
Sure. So there is a method to the madness. It helps, of course, to have a hugely methodical individual in the middle of that storm. Okay, so let's talk about industrial policy and investor confidence. It's no secret, Nigeria's manufacturing base has struggled for decades. The usual suspects are power, logistics, FX constraints. Can you tell me, and I want you to be very, very specific here, what particular steps you are taking to restore investor confidence and drive industrialization under these conditions? I know you already alluded to much of this, but I want you to drill down further into it.
So the specifics one was, first of all, handling the FX. And so the central bank really went after that. And also inflation, working on that. You've seen inflation beginning to come down. That's another area. Then the tax reforms is another area that we've worked on specifically. Now, power is one that we continue to work on with new solutions, and it's just a combined ecosystem. All the types of power available from solar. Nigeria is now nearly knocking out South Africa as the largest importer of solar panels on the continent. I think Egypt is now third or so, and that speaks to diversified pool of power sources.
Sure.
So we're working with our manufacturers to make sure that they have a concrete bouquet and opportunity. And so that means trade facilitation when you need to import, input, what that means to your ports system. And so working with the customs service, trade facilitation, we have a single window that has eluded us for many years that is going live in Q1.
Okay.
Crimson Logic is our technical partner. They're the best in the world from Singapore. And you know what the Singaporean port is like.
Yes.
And so Mr. President has taken this very seriously. And so these are the things, I worked on ease of doing business for almost a decade before being appointed. And so these are the methodical step-by-step things that you have to deliver for businesses to be able to compete. Access to capital is another thing. High interest rates, again, the central bank has been working with the financial system to see how our development finance institutions like the Bank of Industry, the Development Bank of Nigeria, the Bank of Agriculture, also working very closely. So you can see that there's so much going on in this administration, prioritizing what we know is the trajectory for delivering a $1 trillion economy by 2030. Yeah.
Sure. And security or insecurity? I don't very much care for that word insecurity. Should we say the lack or the absence of security? How do you feel that this has impacted or impacts on the agenda you just laid out?
So this is a priority for the administration. Again, if you look at the 8-point agenda, you see it right there at the top. Mr. President has asked the National Security Advisor and the Ministers of Defense to prioritize this. This is something that has to do with all Nigerians. It's a collective responsibility. And so we assuring, as Minister responsible for investment, assuring investors that wherever you want to go around the country, the government is going to be there with you to support you, from agribusiness to mining of solid minerals, critical rare earths. We're with them round the country to make sure that they're safe. We're also promising Nigerians you can go back to your farms. And so when you look at the news concerning the insecurity or lack thereof, you will see that progressively, if people are objective, and this is a problem that governments all over the world are tackling. It's not something that's just like a label on one administration. Insecurity is a people issue. It's not like something government is just triggering or lack thereof. So it's a responsibility for all of us. And we all have to collectively work on making sure that we secure our nation for productivity and development.
Absolutely. And you have, Dr. Oduwole, spoken publicly about how digital innovation, connectivity, and institutional reforms can drive Africa's trade potential forward. Would you care to speak a bit more about this?
Again, we look at businesses in about 3 buckets. We look at pure technology businesses, look at businesses that are enabled by technology, and then we look at other businesses that technology just infuses their processes. And so when you look at the complexity of problems that exist around us, they're each an opportunity for innovation, an opportunity for creativity, and an opportunity to create wealth, to generate returns. That is why investors from different regions are investing in our tech businesses here on the continent. That is why our young people are able to, because of the complexity they've grown up with, the agility of their minds, their innovation. Again, I'll allude to the Moonshot Conference I was at just yesterday. Their ability to generate solutions that are scalable across the continent to solve problems for the continent and solve problems for the world. Like really, when you talk about, I'll talk about PAGA because it's here with us in Nigeria. PAGA, even with job creation, it has helped significantly to solve financial inclusion. They have agents across the country. You have the POS system. These are things you don't have in other regions because there's just no need for it. And so when you see African techpreneurs solving complex problems, from dropping medicine with drones to agricultural innovation solutions, distributing fertilizer, again, I'll talk about like drone technology or just whatever it is you need, it is the area that the continent really needs to focus on to enable our young people to thrive, which is why this administration has determined that digital trade is what we want to champion for Nigeria and for Africa.
Absolutely. So I'd like to talk to you about the challenge of governance. Reform, of course, as we know, is often less about policy, more about implementation, isn't it? I'd like to ask you, as a government minister, how you go about building accountability, transparency, and the discipline of delivery into public institutions, so these reforms can actually reach the ground.
Basically, you're asking me what I did for nearly a decade, the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. So from ideation, this was an idea of how can we bring transparency and efficiency into public service delivery. We looked at it in 3 buckets: people issues, processes, and infrastructure. Now, the council focused on the soft issues, which is the people issues and the processes. For processes, it's layering of automation and technology across the board. For people issues, it's really about stakeholder engagement, advocacy, and building trust with the private sector and building commitment, inspiring the quest for excellence in the public service. So with that role, I was able to work with all arms and levels of government to really break things down into tasks. Just in terms of what we were able to achieve, over 200 verifiable reforms that were verified externally, like by the World Bank, Ease of Doing Business ranking report then, before it was discontinued, and just working with from legislation with the National Assembly, from judicial reforms, having things like small claims courts, where we delivered self-representation, delivering judgments for small businesses within 60 days, to working with ministries, departments, and agencies across the board, from customs to immigration to NAFTA to CAC to FAN, you take a problem, for instance, company registration, that when we started took about 6 weeks, and you have to go to Abuja to register a company. So lawyers needed to do it for you. Distill that process to what steps does it take and what do you need? Cut off the fluff, automate it. We distilled it into one form, automated it, and today you can register a business within 24 hours online at the CAC. You can reserve a business name within 4 hours. You can get a visa on arrival within 48 hours and bring a guest to Nigeria. So what that means is that if I meet you in London, let's take it further, in Shanghai. If I meet you in Shanghai on Monday, I can have you in Nigeria by Thursday. I can register that business. By the next Monday, you can start doing business. So practically, that is the ideal of ease of doing business. Now, the thing about it is that you have to sustain your foot on the acceleration pedal. You take your foot off, it's 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. So during that work, you have to track. Like if you talk about an organized mind, tracking what gets measured gets done. So we had the ease of doing business report for states across the country. We had the executive order 001, tracking transparency and efficiency of public service delivery across specified matrix. Traffic light, no long story. It's either green, check, amber, ongoing, or red. You're stalled. And if you're stalled, what is the escalation you need? So it takes a sustained amount of stakeholder engagement, of communication, and of tracking. And the most important thing, consequence management.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for resolving the Gordian knot of company registration in this country. So I want to move on to and talk about the role of women and youth in economic renewal. I'm particularly interested in this. I have 2 young girls myself. So you've championed inclusion and youth empowerment through a number of initiatives that I know mean a great deal to you. So talk to me about No Limits Nigeria.
No Limits. So No Limits is a platform that I started while I was lecturing at University of Lagos. It was just an opportunity to bring friends of mine, role models, to come speak to my students. And the name is a recipe, it speaks for itself. You literally have no limits. As Winston Churchill said, the empires of the world were first empires of the mind. And so being an educator and an academic, I just wanted them to mix with people who are actually working the talk and doing big things. And for them to know that their place in the world is guaranteed. It doesn't have to start where you think. You can start with whatever it is that you're doing to build your environment, to build your nation, and to impact the world. So everybody should just aspire to die empty. And it's everything that you were born with to give to the world. You give it to the world and then you go home. And so that's No Limits. You literally should have no limits and you should strive to impact. And so in this role, in my previous role, after taking a break with No Limits from when I was an academic, I started it again online on Instagram, interviewing different role models and engaging young Nigerians. I have a whole bunch of vibrant volunteers, former students, followers for online who just attend and work on it together. It's just a very nice sharing time.
And of course, there are lots of apocryphal statements attributed to Winston Churchill, and I'm sure you know. But what role do you see for women and young entrepreneurs in driving the next phase of Nigeria's industrial growth? I want you to be specific.
So you see, 65% of our small and medium-sized enterprises are women and youth owned and led. And when you think that Nigeria has just under 40 million MSMEs and they employ over 80% of jobs in Nigeria, then you know that if you don't focus on that demographic.
Correct.
Now, coming back to the African Continental Free Trade Area, that agreement is one of the only ones that has a protocol on women and youth in the world that I know of. And so whether it's at a national level or at a regional level, it's important with a big informal sector that Nigeria and many African countries have. It's important to focus on that demographic and consciously include them. So at the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, not because it's female-led, but because this is what we believe.
We'll ignore that.
Because this is what we believe.
Yes.
For our Export Promotion Council in particular, we'll have about 2 or 3 programs focused on youth, on women exporters. Yes. And so we had recently 146 women win grants. We partnered with ITC and WTO. And so, in fact, Dr. Okonjo, that was what she was in town for a couple of months ago. And so they got grants and technical assistance for market access so that they can export their goods across the world. We also have different programs like we entered into with UNDP, a trade export air corridor with Uganda Air. We negotiated a flat rate for businesses, and that flat rate brought down costs by 50 to 75% for businesses. The first people to benefit from that flat rate were, of course, female exporters. And so with intentionality, you deliver programs and reforms that target those demographics. I'm known to just really enjoy young people. Like I've always been like that. I guess it's the teacher in me. And so focusing on prioritizing the areas, that brings us back again to digital trade, the areas where young people thrive, whether it's agribusiness. Like my students always had a side hustle, like all of them, like while they were in law school, in studying law.
Don't we all?
Yes. So the entrepreneurship of Nigerian youth is unmatched. The talent of Nigerian youth is unmatched. It's unparalleled, really globally. The energy, the ginger is unmatched. And so just encouraging and focusing and enabling that demographic, you can actually literally see it where they're active in our GDP.
True. Absolutely. So I'd like to talk to you now about the priorities for the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. What can we look forward to specifically in the year ahead?
Okay. So I'll start by what we announced in January, what we said we would do when we released in January our Outlook document for 2025. There were 3 key areas: investment mobilization, which speaks to where we're getting money from, whether it's coming into capital markets, portfolio investors, whether it's more patient capital, what sectors we're attracting into, much of the work that we've done traveling around the world. And next year, our focus will be inviting investors to see what we've talked about right here in Nigeria. So that's one track. The second track will be the trade policy. We submitted our AFCFTA schedules. We're negotiating with a number of countries. That's trade agreements, investment protection agreements. Tidying up the trade policy, we instituted a coordination committee, a central coordination committee for implementing AFCFTA. So what people have been doing in pockets in trade policy, also making sure that our trade agreements are tidy, which ones have expired, which ones need to be sunset, which ones are productive, which ones need to be negotiated. So we're in quite very, very busy. It's been a very busy year.
Of course.
And then exports. I talked about the 8-point agenda, number 7, accelerating diversification of non-oil exports. So the work we've been doing, reviewing the free zones, the incentive structure there, dovetailing into the work of the tax administration reform. So really prioritizing exports, non-oil exports, speaking to market access, going to speaking with other regulators, inviting them home. What would it take to export Nigerian goods, whether it's goods, whether it's services, the regulatory track? When we have issues like Japan flagged an issue with Nigeria's sesame, and Nigeria controls about 40% of imports of sesame into Japan. It's a very high quality grade we have. working with the Japanese government to address that issue before it's escalated and we get a ban. Also, EU has a deforestation regulation that they've been pushing for the last couple of years, working with them to make sure that Nigerian exports are not caught in that ban. So a lot of technical trade, exports, investment work. And our fourth pillar will be strategic communications, just making sure that we're not blinking in the dark, that people actually know what we're working on and that they can tap in and utilize those reforms and those policies that we've been working on as a ministry.
Sure. So talking about specific sectors, and I'm bound to ask this question, health, perhaps?
Health, we work with PEBEC, that's the presidential initiative. We partner very closely with the Minister of Health and his team in that respect. Manufacturing for health. So the policies that have to do with manufacturing syringes, for instance, sort of encouraging manufacturers that produce things like malaria nets, public health issues. We're actively working to enable those investors coming to the Nigerian market and produce in Nigeria for the African market. So when you talk about consumables, whatever really it is, I've been to a number. We now have at least 2 diagnostic labs that I've visited that are producing kits. So they're not even, they're manufacturers, not even labs. They're producing kits in Nigeria for diabetes, for HIV in Nigeria. And so those are to be encouraged. And so whatever it is that they need, we support, we enable. And so that's how we work with the Ministry of Health.
So delving further into sectors, let's talk for a bit about the entertainment industry. The Nigerian movie industry is reportedly worth about $6 billion US. It's projected to reach about $14 billion US over the next few years, if you believe the figures. You recently attended a premiere, and the Lagos version of it, of course, of Lilian Olubi's new movie, Osamede. Yes. I'm name dropping shamelessly. I ran into her a few weeks ago coming out of a restaurant in VI, but I believe she's a great friend of yours.
She is.
Obviously, you were there celebrating Made in Nigeria. And the newspaper article wrote, and I quote, "This film represents a shift in African cinema, a superhero story told entirely in Edo,
Yes.
financed independently by Nigerian capital, and opening across Nigeria, the UK, and North America within the next few weeks." So I'd like to draw a sharp contrast here. Fantastic movie out now called My Father's Shadow. Okay, currently screening in Nigerian cinemas, won awards at Cannes this year. It tells a very Nigerian story at a particular time in our history. Yet it was produced and then served up to us as a BBC production. My first question is, how can we prevent this happening? And how does your ministry, of course, intend to support entertainment and this growing movie industry we fondly refer to as Nollywood?
So that is a very important question. I'll start from the end, saying that really, where is the money? Where is the capital? Who is investing in Nollywood? Who is believing? When you have foreign capital coming in, whether it's in technology space, how many of our businesses are bought into and then asked to register in Delaware? Creative sector, they invest majority, it becomes a UK movie, it becomes a Canadian movie, it becomes a Belgian movie, because the majority of the capital is from another country. Yeah. It's happening with tech, it's happening with creativity, it's happening across many sectors.
Sure.
We are not saying we don't want investment. That is our job. Whether it's agriculture, whether it's our laws say you can come in and invest 100%, you get your repatriation. So from a business stand case and how you want businesses to grow and thrive, doesn't look like such a problem. But I throw the challenge back to us Nigerians. because we have capital in this country,
Absolutely.
we have capital on this continent. And I've raised this case in fora for the AU and different places across Africa, which is why I spoke about the African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, Lillian had this idea. She's been my friend, a childhood friend, many, many years. I knew when this story was an idea in her head. So to actually attend the premiere, and it opens in cinemas tomorrow, 17th of October.
We'll just drop that in, shall we?
Let me just drop that in. Watch it, don't miss it.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, she produced a play. Also bootstrapping. Now, this is somebody who had worked in the financial sector for many, many years. And so leveraging on that expertise for the creative sector. So it's a transposition, and being able to bootstrap to have a play, have about 3 iterations of that, and then decided she wanted to take it to the big screen. I'm extremely proud of the project for the reasons you've spoken about. Not only was it financed by Nigerians for Nigerians, it was shot entirely in Edo State. The language, the authenticity, the cultural display. And so, of course, it's super appreciated on the global stage. It doesn't take away from anyone who attracts and retains foreign capital, but nobody is going to grow our sectors for us. When Nigerian capital invests in Nigeria, great things happen across sectors. We create jobs. Can you imagine how many jobs are created in Edo, from the wardrobe to the interpreters to everything, and to the filming, people who would sell food on the sets. Now, when you talk about My Father's Shadow, also just a beautiful movie. I haven't seen it, but I've heard so many good things about it. I'm very proud of that work also. Now you have this nationalistic pride coming up, like, how can we not own our own story? Show me the money. Show me the money. Somebody else believed.
Absolutely.
I would talk about Black Panther. Somebody else believed in the vision of what Africa is, of what Africa can and should be. And so it should be a wake-up call for us Africans, for us Nigerians. Are we going to invest in the telling of our own stories, the present and the future? Are we going to own our own stories and project what we want to see? Or are we going to let capital recreate what it is the world sees about this country and this continent? That is the real issue.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Oduwole, you've spoken openly. I'd like to respond to this very, very briefly about the importance of faith, purpose, and discipline as anchors in your journey. Now, in moments of challenge and difficulty, tell me, what keeps you motivated? What personal practices sustain that clarity of purpose that is so much on display here today?
Really, it's, for me, I consider my work a kingdom assignment. I consider it my purpose. And so, because I didn't send myself, when it gets tough, I just have to reach back to God and ask for strength, ask for help, ask for courage, and to know that God brings around me people of all faiths, denominations, of all. That's also another thing, that a kingdom assignment doesn't mean that I'm just going to be surrounded by Christians or people who think like me. That's why I mentioned at the beginning, I'm detribalized.
Yes.
I also am not somebody who believes that I can achieve my purpose only with people of the same faith, which are Christians. And so in my work journey, working in a country that has so much diversity, it is that diversity that has been our biggest strength.
Sure.
When you think of my team, in all shapes, and it's always been like that, organically. Because when we see the best of each other, it doesn't matter. It's like when you play Super Eagles or Super Falcons, these things fade.
Yes.
Yeah, so faith is my anchor. It's really the only thing that has kept me. It's really the only thing that has made me know that my purpose is to serve Nigeria and Nigerian people. And so when there are many things I could be doing or be focused on, I could make so much money elsewhere, I could have an easier time, I could have at times a less frustrating time, But there's nothing else I'd rather do. There's nothing that gives me as much joy and fulfillment as watching a Nigerian business just explode on the global stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to talk about the future and your legacy. So when history looks back at this period of reform, what is the single transformation or institutional shift you hope will define your legacy, both as a scholar and as a public leader?
We're going to see the proof of the pudding in the eating. I saw a comment on social media. Somebody sent me a comment on Instagram about 4 months ago. And I had visited a Nigerian automobile manufacturing plant. And I had talked about productivity. I had talked about just believing in Buy Nigeria. I had talked about so many businesses that are now doing well and the stabilization. And somebody sent me a note saying, where can I get a list of companies where I can invest? When a Nigerian is going to take their hard-earned money and willingly invest in another Nigerian company in this economy, then you know that you're making a difference.
Absolutely.
Because until we believe in ourselves, until we buy Nigeria, until we invest in Nigeria, until we stop changing our naira to dollars and keeping it under our pillows, until we stop thinking that we need to wear just, eat imported food, wear imported clothes, listen to. And if you check, in the last decade or two, it's been progressively changing. All the time, I take my clothes when I travel and I bring them right back. I buy basics maybe, but I take my wardrobe. I'm not just Nigerian, African sometimes. Like this is Ghanaian. I take my wardrobe and bring it back because everywhere around the world, people are asking me, where did you get this?
Yeah.
So why am I going to be shopping and spending how much at, wherever, when I can spend less and get more? And so that's same with food, even for health reasons. A lot of the processed food is carcinogenic.
Yes.
Why am I not going to eat organic, fresh Nigerian food? Why am I going to be trying to be buying processed things at supermarkets that cost an arm and a leg when I can eat fresh?
Sure.
And so with everything we do, we need to think it through and say, what is it that's going to deliver for this economy? And we have an important responsibility, those of us that are the elite. And I defined for a long time ago to my students, if you're in this class, if you're in a law university classroom, you can read, you can write, you're getting a university education. Being an elite is not about wealth.
Absolutely.
It's about being in the forefront of the society to deliver it's like an iceberg, to deliver for the 90%. So we're probably the 1% of the 1% who have had the opportunity to be well schooled. I have 4 degrees from the best universities in the world. You talked about Cambridge, you talked about Stanford, but my foundation was University of Lagos.
Absolutely.
And so wherever I go to across the world and people are like, yeah, I schooled in University of Lagos. I taught in University of Lagos. My students, I taught them in University of Lagos. And so when we go on the global stage, being authentic and knowing who we are, that is what I want my legacy to be.
Absolutely.
The trust that you can serve in public service. You can be a politician and it is not a dirty word. That is what I want people to trust government, to trust the process, to believe, to engage. Very important. So when you talk about legacy, I want to shift perceptions from the norms. I want people to be open. I want them to question. I want them to believe, to trust the process. I want them to believe in themselves and in Nigeria. And the best is yet to come.
Yeah. So, Dr. Oduwole, on to my final question. And this is usually my desert island question. But in your case, I'm going to frame it differently. And I'm going to ask, if you were to write a letter to your younger self, and at the start of your public service journey, what would that letter say?
have courage. Have courage. The single most important thing you need in public service is courage. To be true to your convictions, to be true to your authentic self, to trust your decisions, to trust your trajectory, to believe in what you're doing there, and that what you do makes a difference. Even when it seems like you're pouring water in a basket, have courage, stay the course. Don't give up. The best is yet to come.
Jumoke Oduwole, thank you for joining us on One2One.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.